how did you break into sales? I mean, what made you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to definitely get into sales here?
Well, it's interesting. One of the things I often say on my show is that nobody went to school for sales.
Amen to
So,
that,
it's
right?
not necessarily a direct career progression. And like a lot of folks, you fall into it one way or another. When I was in college, I went to broadcast school. And, when you're in broadcast school, you do the journalism side, but then you also get into the business management side a little bit. And I had this one teacher who said, you should really explore the sales side of this business because you don't strike me as the type of person that wants to work every holiday, every weekend at night. You seem like you have a little bit more of that business sense to you. So he dropped me into his buddy, who's the GM of a small AM radio station in the Scottsdale area. I walk in the door, the guy says, hey, Norm speaks highly of you. Welcome. Here, let me show you your desk. Here's the white pages. Here's the phone. Have at it, kid. And I'm like, what the hell is this?
So wait a second. So before you go on, we have to explain to a lot of people, what in the world are the white pages?
Yeah, right. So before, you could just do a Google search, or you had Zoom info or whatever database digitally that you could just pull and curate lists with the click of a button. You basically had to open this book that was, 6 inches thick. And in the white pages was the business one, right? Or was it?
Yeah, correct. The yellow page. Well, the yellow page. Yeah, you could go to yellow pages, but the white pages had a business section.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so you get the business section, and it was categorized by all of these different things, but it just basically was a business name and a phone number and an address. So, you could just start calling down those things, and that's what the expectation was. And, I, as a 19, 20-year-old, you don't really know where to start. So I started spinning my wheels a little bit, figuring out what I was going to do just to get through this semester, right? I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be horrible. So I went into the traffic guy, the guy, who basically keeps stuff on the air. And I said, who advertises on this station right now? Like, give me a sense for who's spending money here. Because it was a small station. And it was basically golf courses or boutique shops. So, all right, great. Now I've at least got some direction where I can go after. If you've ever been to the Phoenix, Scottsdale area, there are lots of golf courses and lots of boutique shops. So not too hard to find those things and narrow them down. So I built a 2-3 slide deck that basically said who advertises on their station, this is what they get. And I started calling golf courses and boutique shops. And I made it so that at least 2 days of my week, I was out pitching to these people. And I wasn't just sitting in there making phone calls. I said, I had to get out of here. I can't just sit here all the time. So I wound up doing that. I actually beat every person who was a full-time employee in sales in that semester. I was offered a full-time job, and I basically said, F you, there's no way in hell I'm working. And, I'm getting close to graduation. That was my first foray into sales and my first foray into building, your account targeting. How are you going to build an ICP and do some account targeting and things like that?
Well, so let me pause you right here. So we'll put a pin on it and kind of unpack a little bit. So what we've developed here, and I've just been taking some notes. You've mentioned the fact that you've grown year over year, right? And I think that's one of the critical key points that we find in really successful salespeople is they are never comfortable with status quo. It's funny, I'm on a couple of these channels. I think you and I are on one of the channels as well. And sometimes people reach out to you for mentorship.
Sure.
And I said, listen, if you don't have that growth mindset, if you're not constantly learning and that highly risk motivated, because most salespeople are not going to be sitting around collecting stamps, doing woodworking, right? There's no way that you're going to find salespeople there.
Right.
I said, most salespeople, they're jumping out of airplanes, driving fast stuff, doing some crazy things. And I think that comes out of that growth mindset. So did you have both that growth year over year from revenue, or was there also some other growth that you had there?
Well, it's a little bit of both. So think about it. The way I like to think, you say growth mindset, I think of, there's a perception out there that salespeople are only motivated by money. And I think on the surface, it's easy to say, yeah, that's totally true. But I actually think the best salespeople are internally motivated. And what that means is they know their why and they want to be growing all the time, to your point, right? There is that growth mindset of the status quo isn't good enough. I want to be better than average. I want to do better for myself. I want to do better for my family, whatever that means. I think the money comes as a result of that, but I don't think the money itself is the intrinsic motivator. That's just a personal view.
Yeah, the weird thing about sales is sales it may or may not be the motivator, and that surprised me because I had the same mindset as you, Josh. But according to Curlin,
Mhm.
the number one indicator of success in sales is that money motivation, which really shocked me because I'm of the same mindset as you. However, sales, unlike anything else, I think, well, really two: sales and leadership. If you're that CEO,
Right.
founder, that revenue, that's your scorecard,
For sure.
right? And so the only thing that does is tell you how well you've done. So I love that. So you're talking about growth mindset, not necessarily money motivated, but intrinsically motivated. And I interrupted you. Keep going.
Yeah. As a scorecard, I don't think it's a problem at all. And, you know, I think a lot of people fear money and they have all sorts of perceptions in their head of what money is and how it's used and that it can be bad and all of those types of things. The bottom line is it's a vehicle to help you do what you want to do, right? Like you can use it and wield it however it is you want to use it and wield it. Everyone has different things that they care about. Like I don't care about cars. Cars don't matter to me. I'm never going to go out and buy a Lamborghini, even if I can afford it. I drive a pickup truck. But then again, I love my house. I'm going to put all kinds of money into my backyard and my gym and my house and all those types of things. Like it doesn't, one's not right versus the other. It's just what people care about. And you can't do any of those things unless you have the money to do it. And like you said, if you're producing revenue for somebody else in an organization, there's intrinsic value in that, right? And you're going to be compensated for it. So, I don't think the money itself is the motivation.
Yeah, and I like what you said there. Don't fear money, because oftentimes people are worried about talking about money. They won't have those decisions, or they'll sell out of their own pocketbook as opposed to selling the value. And I
Right.
think that's a critical key point. Good. And then you also talked, I was expecting you to say, whenever that one person said, "Oh, Josh, you should get into sales," you
Mhm.
threw me whenever I was expecting you to say, because you're a people person, but that's not what you said. I can't remember the exact words. I think you're more business minded or had better business acumen. Is that what they said?
Yeah, it seemed that you thought more like a business person, right? You had more of that just intrinsic, hey, you're curious about this, you want to know how things work, and not necessarily just sitting behind the microphone, and which I love, right? Like this is the reason I podcast and I go on these shows is because I did have a love for that, right? And the new world of podcasting actually gave me an outlet to do something that I loved when I was a kid. So it's just a kind of a little sidebar, but yeah.
Yeah, and I like what you said there. So not only that business minded, but you mentioned curious, which is
Right.
another key phase. So out of that short little brief story, we found that your year-over-year growth, you're money motivated, but not driven strictly by money. So you're probably more others focused, which comes from that curiosity. And then you also laid out, you created your ICP list, that ideal customer profile list. And that was before anybody was even thinking about doing that. So
Very rudimentary, but yeah.
yeah. So how did you go about even, you're 19 years old. How did you figure that one out?